with what I like and what I want. That's what I try to do when I buy gifts. I try to make this time of the year, and we can say whatever we want about Christmas and it being a pagan holiday and all of that stuff, but I can have that conversation. But the biggest thing is like, I'm paying attention to you. I see what you like and I see what you enjoy. And I try to get very thoughtful gifts. So in a way, the gifts that I purchase for people, it's because I want to let you know how much I appreciate you, but also showing that appreciation is saying, I noticed this about you. We had this conversation about books on mythology, and for Christmas, of course, maybe you'll get a nice book about mythology because we had this meaningful conversation about it. So I really do think that money is so tied into relationships, particularly around this time of the year. It's like, who's important to you, who you spend Christmas with, who you spend special times with and holiday with, says a lot about the relationship and how much money you spend or how much money you don't spend. So we'll get into a lot of that today.
Okay, well, you know what? I think that's a good point, right? So you talked about the holidays and gift giving, and I think that's an interesting thing because I know you as a relationship expert, you talk a lot about things like love languages and stuff like that. And and I noticed one thing, for example, with you and I is that at Christmas we have different love languages in terms of how gift giving fits into the process. I'm not my biggest gift I give is my time because my time is so rare and it's very hard for me to have time. Whereas if I give money, it's like, oh, okay, here's $50, big deal, right? But time, if I give time, that's a big deal. But you had mentioned also like maybe some people may give presents or some people may give something else or some people may give nothing. I wonder if that's important to just kind of understand too, just as a point of balance is kind of understanding, how should the gift giving process go? And I'm even thinking as a financial guy, I've always been an advocate of finding ways to express your love at Christmas that doesn't involve a lot of money. I don't know, what are your thoughts on some of that?
Yeah, well, my love, gift giving is not a love language. It's not really. I think for both of us, I think gift giving was like the lowest out of the five, was really small, which is really interesting. I don't really like, I'm uncomfortable receiving gifts, but I am way better at giving gifts. Like, it's like, when I give somebody a gift, I just sit there and I watch them open it. It's almost like when I make you a meal, if I cook you something, I won't even eat it. I'll just sit there and watch you eat it. So it's the giving that I feel much more comfortable with, more so than just the receiving of gifts. But a lot of it is your love language. But if you know anything about me during this time of the year, I like to get a very thoughtful gift. And Boyce, you don't let me down. You don't disappoint.
Well, we're taking the trip to the Bahamas for our Christmas gift, or part of it. So that's I was kind of proud of that. We get a chance to go and hang out with some really cool Black people out there, and so I try my best. But let me ask you this. Did you? I don't know if you put together any slides or anything that you want to kind of go through.
Let me share.
Yeah, go ahead and share your screen. And what I'll do is I'll kind of chime in when I feel the need to add some color to something. And I think that as Dr. Alicia pulls her slides up, I want to think about two things really. One is financial addiction. The other one is shopping addiction. So shopping addiction and financial addiction are two things I thought a lot about. And I'm actually going to ask you, Dr. Alicia, as an addiction expert, how do I know the difference between an addiction and a habit? What is there like any sort of sort of foundational theory or belief behind how you even know the difference? Because I have things that I really love to do, but does that make me an addict?
Well, I mean, there's this obsession and there's this compulsion about it, and it's like you can't stop thinking about it. Have you ever hung out with drug addicts? Like, as soon as they wake up in the morning, the first thing they're doing is, I'm gonna get my next hit. And then all day long they're thinking about it. I gotta be if I call so-and-so, she owe me a favor and I can cut her grass and she can give me money and then I can take that money and go downtown and get my hit. And that's what I'm going to do. It's like you're obsessed over it, and all of your behaviors has everything to do with trying to get money so that you can so that you can buy your drugs. Like that is a real hardcore addiction. I mean, and so there's a physiological addiction to it, when there's some sort of substance abuse. And by the way, substance abuse is very, very connected to shopping addictions. So yeah,
okay.
it is
So
really,
you say
really
it's connected. How is substance abuse connected to shopping addictions?
It's a comorbidity. So that means a lot of people who have shopping addictions also, in addition, have some sort of issue with substance abuse, other types of addictions, usually, and also personality. I mean, think about it. Think about people who are bipolar. I mean, that's part of what you do when you're in a bipolar episode. You just go and you're in this sort of hypomanic state, and you're just stressed out, and you just go and you just impulsively, because it has to do with impulse. So you just buy and buy and buy up all of these things. So it's really difficult for a lot of professionals like myself, when we're asking people questions about shopping, we got to keep in mind, okay, is this a bipolar? Is this a manic episode, or is it more so a shopping addiction, or are there other things going on, depression, anxiety, all these other things going on, where shopping is just kind of like a symptom of something else. So it is related to a lot of other mental health issues, for sure.
Okay. I want everybody to know that as we go through our meetings, our lectures every week, that the recordings of this class and all the other classes, if you go to boycewatkins.com, you can scroll down and look for financial therapy with Dr. Alicia, and you can find the recordings of every single joint lecture that we do. And so basically, many of you are enrolled in a couple different programs in the Black Business School, and that's how you ended up here. This is part of the Black Financial Therapy Department that we created, basically because we wanted to really get to the bottom of the psychological barriers that keep us from building Black wealth. So we're super proud of that, because we don't know of any other. I don't know, Dr. Alicia. I mean, I'm calling Dr. Alicia. That's my wife. But do you know of any? I've never seen a Black financial therapy department anywhere at a university or anything. But I think it's needed. I think it's necessary, right? It's kind of like that next level.
We are pioneers up in here. We are doing it. We really are. I mean, first of all, how many Black couples with a PhD get together and marry each other? I want to know who they are. I do know of a couple from Gary, by the way, but I don't know very many.
Are they the ones who went to Harvard?
Yeah, they're friends with my brother.
They were both deans at Harvard, and
yeah.
And I think they didn't they both get like fired or something
they
crazy.
Did.
And that was why I wouldn't want to teach at a place like a Harvard, right? Because I feel like these institutions are not really built for people that really want to do the radical work necessary to elevate the Black community. Like if you really want to get buck with it, like we do, there's no institution that really can hold us in that way. Like I really want to go as hard as we need to go to really solve this problem. I don't want anybody telling me, oh, it's going to take 2 years for us to approve a class that you want to teach on XYZ, and you'll be teaching to a bunch of white kids, in the process anyway. No, I want to go right to the heart of the problem. Just like doing surgery, heart surgery or something, you got to find exactly where the problem is, go right to it and get in there with the scalpel and really dig it out and understand it and focus on it. You got to focus. So this.
Oh my God. Right, yes. The client, the patient is dying. We ain't got time for HR to approve the paperwork. This is SOS. We're in critical condition. We need to jump in and get going. This is emergency. We're in trauma ER room where I used to work. They ain't care about it. They're trying to fix it.
Absolutely. So I appreciate your great work in this area. So why don't you go ahead and get started? You can go and get started on the slides, and I'll be a participant until I raise my hand and add something. Go ahead.
Well, of course, Boyce, you can raise. You don't have to raise your hand. You can just jump in when you feel like it. So what I was clarifying to Boyce here was that there been several months that I have been doing other sessions in another group format. And it was with Dr. Boyce's Prime students. And wait, but Prime stands for, could you say that again, Boyce? What does Prime stand for?
Prime stands for Passive Recurring Income Machine. And if anybody's interested in joining, you can go to drboyceprime.com. And basically, we designed that program because we study you guys and ask you guys on surveys how we can best serve your needs. And what we found is that many of you are looking for ways to generate extra income. So I realized that one of the ways I generate cash flow is by selling stock options. So I said, let me show you guys how to do it and show you exactly what I'm buying and selling and how I'm doing things. And so a lot of you are in that program. So this is a bonus, this Love and Money Masterclass in this and the Money Mindset programs. All of that is available to the Prime students. So you can go to drboyceprime.com if you're not yet in that program. I know you're going to like it. I know you are, but go ahead, please.
Yeah, so I do recommend that you go because this is session 8 that I've done for the Prime students. And the topics were generated by the students. Like, we surveyed you guys, like, what would you guys like to hear about? What would you guys like for us to address? And so today's topic is a topic that came out of those conversations. This is my contact information. This is how you get a hold of me. Anybody who's in the master class, and anybody who's in the Prime program, if you reach out to me and you're interested in working with me individually, either as by yourself or either with your significant other, you do get a discount. So I just wanted to highlight that information. Okay, so today's session is on shopping addiction, and session number 1 through 7, you can find that in the Prime, Dr. Boyce Prime program. We talked about financial anxiety. We talked about money personality. You take a test and find out your money personality. We talked about your attachment style and how it related to finances. Attachment style is such a big topic that we covered it for 2 sessions. We talked about how attachment style relates to your finances, all the different aspects to how you spend money, how you earn money, how you talk to someone else about money. In those conversations, we did talk about the mindset. We kind of talked a little bit about keeping up with the Joneses, all the negativity and fear and anxiety, leaving a legacy for your children and barriers to making those decisions. So we talked about all of that for 2 weeks. Session number 5, we focused primarily on trauma and finances. Everyone took the ACEs scale, and then we got your ACEs score. And then we talked about how that relates to the way you look at money. Session 6, after talking about a whole bunch of other stuff, we spent that session talking about healing in terms of finances. I walked you through a couple of exercises, and we had a really good conversation there. The last time we met with the Prime group, we specifically talked about financial abuse. Briefly, financial abuse, what we found out about financial abuse and the individuals who are vulnerable, the most vulnerable group that is prone to being victims or survivors of exploitation in terms of their finances is, ding, 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 African-American women. And it's really interesting because when I think about Black women from the time we are little girls to all the way up until when we're, become grandmas and the big mama and nana, the nana of the house, we're finding that, abuse is very just higher among African-American women. And even sexual abuse is like 1 out of every 4 African-American women have been sexually abused. That's 25%. That's really high. That's higher than any other group you could ever point to. And so we really need to protect our Black women and Black females from the time we're born all the way up until we have passed on to this world. We have not done a good job about it as a group, as a community. We've done a piss poor job with really, protecting and loving and caring for Black females. So I don't know if you want to talk about that, but that was one thing that when I specifically said, this is what's happening in terms of, financial abuse in general. But when I started breaking down and looking at the data and looking at a lot of the numbers, I was just surprised at how, the prevalence rate among African-American women, it was just remarkable. Did you have anything you wanted to say about that?
Well, I agree. I think that protection of, you can unshare the slides for a minute if you want to, while we
Okay.
address this. And then I definitely want to make sure we jump into the addiction topics
Okay.
when we get a chance, because we've gone about 20 minutes in. But, I think that protection is really important. I think that financial exploitation, we've seen it go both ways, men and women, of course. And I think that when you're talking about protecting individuals, I think we have to really think hard about families and figure out, what's going on with the family situations and family structures. The lowest net worth in America is a single Black mother with kids. Well, the lowest median net worth in America. And the father that has multiple kids in multiple households also has a very low net worth, because child support court and all that drains your income. So ultimately, there's got to be a discussion about, what's the best way to really protect children. And I don't know. I can't really answer that for everybody, because what tends to occur, it seems, is that there's a broken negotiation between men and women when it comes to what it takes to keep the family together. So most of us, who have had a broken family, single mother, single father situation, divorce, etc. If you ask the men, they'll say, well, it was impossible for me to stay with that person. If you ask the women, you'll say, many women will say, well, I couldn't stay with him because he did this and this and this. So the question becomes, what do you continue the same pattern where you hope for the best and then it doesn't work out and then you walk away? Or does something give? Do the men give something and the women give something up as well? I don't know, because I know that when I was sitting in the kitchen today talking to my sister, and we were just talking about, our relationship journey, our relationship beliefs and all that, we realized one advantage we had is that we saw our parents negotiating a really hard relationship for 48 years. And it wasn't pretty, it wasn't romantic, it was romantic periodically. There were romantic moments, but it wasn't like a romantic relationship. It was really more functional, boots to the ground, like almost like they were both construction workers just fighting through mud to make sure that they kept that family unit together. And for some people, that just ain't pretty. For some people, it's like, no, that's not the marriage I've envisioned. That's not the life I envisioned. But it's kind of like, well, I don't know what to say, because then at that point, you have obvious statistics about, children. I think, for example, I'll tell you the truth, I'm a little old school. Like when people talk about things like that line of what is toxic masculinity, I don't believe in toxic masculinity at all. But one of the things I think that should be thought about is that predators are very toxic people, right? Just by nature. And sometimes what a man is sometimes we're a little rough around the edges. Sometimes we leave our dirty drawers on the floor. We might, say or do some things that are not politically correct. But we're just toxic enough to protect you from a toxic person. Like a man is good at protecting a family from other men. And when the man is not present, then the protection is gone. And I don't know if we really think about that enough. So I'm not here to tell anybody what to do. I don't know the answer to this question. It's a very complex issue, but I really think that each individual has to have their own conversation with themselves to determine, how you're going to do this. What's your Planned Parenthood situation going to look like? Because those babies got to be protected.
Oh, that is so great. I really loved it. And I work with I work with so many couples and so many families in my practice, and just the scenario of it all is just kind of like they're saying, I want to make this right. Like, what did I do to do wrong? And I want to be able to be accountable. I want to be able to apologize. I want to be able to set a good example for my family about how to treat this person, how to treat a person that you love, because, there's so intergenerational trauma. It sometimes can tell us that things are normal when really you're just walking around hurting each other. And so I really love the work that I'm doing, because it's like I'm just helping to break some of those stresses in life that's sending us to an early grave. And you're right, if the family stays together, Big Mama is protected. Somebody is there to make sure Big Mama's not taken advantage of, because Big Daddy is there, right? We want Big Mama and Big Daddy. And the sad part about it is that these women, we're outliving a lot of these men. So we want you all healthy. Everybody needs to be healthy, mind, body, and spirit, so that you can treat each other well, mind, body, and spirit, so that you can have pleasurable outcomes and not a whole lot of stress and chaos. So I love what you're saying. I'm gonna share my screen so we can get into.
Okay. Yeah. While you pull your screen up, when you pull your screen up, I'll say this too. I've always said that life is a university. If you go to any university and you study, you can go to the next slide if you want to, babe. And I'll just finish this quick statement. But if you go to any university, the things you study in the university, they come from the world. So the world is the originator of all ideas that you get in the university. So you can learn a lot by watching the world. So another example I watched was I saw my grandparents, who were married up until my grandmother died from Alzheimer's when she was about probably 85, maybe 90. And I saw my grandfather take care of her all the way until she was gone. I saw her carrying her to the bathtub when she could not even remember the names of her children. She did not know who we were. And because of Alzheimer's had set in, and it's a terrible disease, it's a terrible experience. But and it was really sad to watch her. You would tell her about one of her kids, and that died 30 years ago, and she would get sad all over again because it would be like hearing it for the first time. I mean, it was kind of tough, right? But the beauty of it, the most interesting thing I saw was my grandfather literally he had a life debt to that lady. Yeah. And he protected her, and when they were healthy, when they were young and healthy, he was her protector then too. And so I just really think we got to really process this and really figure this thing out, because whenever you see a vulnerability, or especially when you see women unprotected, you always got to ask, what's going on with families, because families have always been historically the great protector of Black people. It's not the police, right? Because the police are,
oh my God.
Some of the cops can be predators too. Not all of them, but some of them can be. So go ahead, babe. You
no,
can